don't need to be a great economic guru to think that there may be a lot of contractors all of a sudden who've been building oversized houses for the last decade, and now we're going to need something new to do because we're not going to be building any more of those for a while. You don't need to be all that smart to realize that we'd be better off and we'd be a better nation if we were sending our young people off to build our new energy future, not to guard the 5,000-mile-long straw that lets us suck oil from the Persian Gulf. And if you think there's not the money to make this happen, just look at the banner from our friends at Budget Priorities over there. 1 day of the war in Iraq costs enough money to put 1 million homes in the renewable energy business. 1 year of the war in Iraq, and that takes care of all the households in this country. Now, there's only one way to make this change happen in time, and it's not working one by one. It's incredibly important that we do that stuff in our homes. It's incredibly important that we screw in the new light bulb. But you know, the people in New Hampshire in last year's elections showed us an even better way, which is to screw in a new congressman. And then once those new congressmen are there and congresswomen, we need to hold their feet to the fire, and the only way to make that happen is to build a movement, a real movement. Fred Small was absolutely right when he said we need a movement as morally urgent, as passionate, as willing to sacrifice as the civil rights movement was a generation ago. Nothing less will do. I was really proud to get to walk up here today with my old friend, Granny D. Now, she's absolutely the best. New Hampshire's been in sore need of a new monument ever since the old man of the mountain crashed down. I would nominate the advanced middle-aged women of the mountain, Granny D, a real hero. I was telling the people who were marching the first day the story about the day that Granny D and I were arrested in Washington, D.C., probably 6 or 7 years ago, in the first civil disobedience about global warming in this country. And we were sort of handcuffed together, we're right next to each other, and as they were leading us into the bus to take us to jail, Granny D looked up at me and said, "You know, I'm 92 and I've never been arrested before. I should have started long ago." For the moment, we don't need to get arrested. We need to walk. But the moment may come when we need to do all kinds of things. This is a movement that we've got to build, and we've got to build it very, very fast. If your appetite is whetted for taking part in movements, there are going to be plenty more opportunities in the months ahead. The one date that you might want to keep in mind and circle on your calendar and keep free is November 3rd. It's a Saturday. It's coming up in about 11 or 12 weeks. It's a year before the federal election. On that Saturday, we're going to do another round of these Step It Up demonstrations that we did last April. This time, we're going to talk very explicitly about leadership and what it means. People are going to rally around the country in places that commemorate the great leaders of the past. People like George Washington, people like Martin Luther King, people like Granny D. What we're going to say on that day is that those are people who, faced with the historic crisis of their times, were not necessarily saints, all of them, except for Granny D, but who stepped up, who did what needed to be done, who seized the nettle, who took the chance, who acted with the kind of boldness that we now need. And if we do that, then we'll be in a position, if we build that movement, to make sure that after the next election, we're able to make the kind of change we need as quickly as we need. in Illinois the last couple of days at a big gathering where I was talking about this thing, and all the candidates, for all the Democratic candidates anyway for president, were there on hand. And people kept asking me, who are you supporting for president? Who's your candidate in the primaries? And I know that that's the question that everybody around New Hampshire asks themselves all the time, and it's an important question, but it's not the most important question right now. The most important question is, will whoever occupies the White House face a country that demands that they change? The amount of political heavy lifting that it's going to take to overcome the oil industry and the coal industry and the auto industry and all the other forces of inertia, that political heavy lifting is so large that only if there is a huge movement behind whoever takes that office will they be able to accomplish what needs accomplishing. They'll sign the legislation, but it is you who will write that legislation if you spend the next year building this movement.